Hey, thanks for the question. So let's take a look here, see how the matchup is. So a tool I love to use is this fancy points against uh, data that Pro Football Reference has. So Ferkser, Titans are playing the Seahawks, I think. Yes, they're playing the Seahawks. The Panthers have a pretty good matchup, if I remember. Saints, okay, nah, mixed bag. I think the defense for the Saints may not be as good this week as it was against the Packers. So Ferguson with the Seahawks, it's not a great matchup. Again, we only have 1 week of data for this season, but I'm going to tell you, start Harris, Marshall Jr. over Anthony Ferguson. I just think Marshall is the third wide receiver on the Panthers is still a better play than a tight end that we're not sure how much usage we're going to get, especially now that Arthur Smith is gone. Arthur Smith was a tight end coach before he became the offensive coordinator. I think he had an affinity for the position that might not still be there. They're definitely going to want to get Julio Jones and AJ Brown working, Derrick Henry working. Like it just won't be a priority. Whereas Marshall, like I think they're going to try and get him the ball. I think that's going to be a continuing thing this season. So, great question. Love it. A full PPR, Sutton or Beasley. I am gonna go with Sutton here. I get that Beasley gets a little bit, of a boost because of that PPR format, because he gets targeted so much. I don't think the Bills have a great matchup, though. I think the Miami defense is a pretty good defense. So, and we saw that when they played New England this past week. Sutton's going to be the clear wide receiver one for Denver. They get the Jags. The only thing I think that's really working there's two things. The health, you're hoping that got a little better this week, but I would say that Sutton should get a ton of targets unless the running attack for the Broncos just destroys the Jags to the point where they literally don't need to pass. So yeah, I would go Sutton over Beasley. Great question. All right, Michael, you say need to Rondale Moore, Robbie Anderson, Tim Patrick. Whew, that's a tough one. Arizona's got the Vikings. I'm not worried about that defense. So let's go with Rondale Moore as one of them. Because I think he does have a lot of potential in that offense, especially combining the rushing attack with the with that ability to obviously be a good wide receiver. He is someone that I think I just was wrong on in my analysis going into the season. So then for the other one, we're gonna look at I'm probably going Tim Patrick over Robbie Anderson just because I think Tim Patrick is going to end up being that wide receiver too in that Broncos offense. I think with both Patrick and Anderson, you run the risk of there's other wide receivers in this offense. So who's going to cannibalize who? I think Robbie Anderson is more at risk of being cannibalized by DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall than Tim Patrick is being cannibalized by KJ Hamler. But I think, it really comes down to what risk are you more concerned about. I think Tim Patrick's a proven commodity that they trusted last year to fill in for injury. I think they'll do so again. So I'm going to go Tim Patrick for the other. Okay, great question, indeed. Keep them coming. This has been a blast so far. You are welcome. Okay. Dylan versus Renfro full PPR flex. For me, this is actually pretty easy. And weirdly, it's Hunter Renfro. I just think we've seen time and time again how much that Derek Carr relies on him in the slot as a just pair of sure hands when he can't get to Darren Waller. So, full PPR, that gives him an advantage as well. AJ Dillon, like we saw some of his work get cannibalized a little by Kylan Hill, but that was when the game was like already totally a blowout. So take that with a grain of salt. I'm not suggesting by any means that Hill is like starting to like take over the backfield from Dillon. And then the Packers could be a wreck for the second week in a row though against the Lions. I'm personally expecting that they smash. But the thing is, I think it will be the usual suspects, which means Aaron Jones, really, not AJ Dillon. I'd rather rely on the guy that I think has like a guaranteed target share, especially in full PPR. So, great question there. You're very welcome. This is like, again, absolutely been a blast. Please keep the questions coming. I'm going to be on here for another 5 to 10 minutes. I actually have another live stream that I'm going to be on today, which won't be a normal thing, but I will. And I'm going to try and keep doing this each Sunday, at least while I write this Sunday preview for Lateral. Okay, Tyson Williams or Elijah Mitchell. This one is incredibly difficult. I get why this is a question. It's not the first time I have heard this question. It won't be the last time I've heard this question. I'm personally still debating it in Scott Fishbowl this week. And I think the short answer is going to be the highest upside is Mitchell. And sometimes a fantasy football decision comes down to which choice are you going to kick yourself over more. Like if you don't start Tyson and you start Mitchell, and then Tyson goes off and Mitchell doesn't, are you going to go like, well, my process was right. It is what it is. That sucks, but I did the right thing. Or the reverse, like if you started Tyson and then Mitchell goes off and Tyson doesn't, are you going to be like, man, I can't believe I started this guy over the other? I think there's a real chance that Elijah Mitchell continues to get that hot-handed approach, especially if Sermon isn't fully up to speed. So, he's just more likely, I think, to dominate his backfield, whereas Tyson, like we saw last week, that he is just not going to dominate that backfield. He will have a significant role in it. It will be fantasy relevant. He will be good, but I don't think he has the upside that Mitchell has. So I would go for the upside there and play Elijah Mitchell. Okay. Next question. Sermon versus Dillon full PPR. Okay, so I just talked about how I don't personally think Sermon could be fully up to speed. The issue here is, again, playing for upside. So, as contradictory as it's going to sound, I think you have to play Sermon here. And the reason is because Sermon could control that San Francisco backfield or have a significant role in it. Whereas Dillon, we know what that role is going to be. You're basically relying on an unpredictable touchdown there. Whereas with Sermon, the potential paths for him are much more laid out. Like there is a route for Trey Sermon to dominate this backfield this week. There is not that pathway for AJ Dillon. So despite the fact that I'm personally thinking it'll still be a bit of the Elijah Mitchell show today, I'm going to go Sermon over AJ Dillon. But again, that really is more about the fact that Dillon has such a set role in that offense. I think, even if it was someone like Peyton Barber, like I'd probably play Peyton Barber over either of those guys, just because if Gruden isn't lying to us and Peyton Barber really is going to be the lead back for that Raiders backfield, his upside is going to be as good as Mitchell's could be potentially, or Sermon's could be potentially, but his floor is going to be safer than those guys. Dillon for me, Dillon's like someone that like in Dynasty you like have to have. I'm honestly not sure in redraft you have to have AJ Dillon at this point in time. He's a solid handcuff, but I think the standalone value we're not quite seeing it yet. Week 2 could totally change that, and we could see him taking like a Jamal Williams-esque role. Though obviously probably a little less pass heavy. That's a good question. All right, probably got time for one more question if it comes up, and then I'm going to have to go prep for this other show. So feel free to send it in if you got one. But if not, it has still been an absolute blast doing this. All right, guys. If anyone's got one more question, I can probably answer it. Otherwise, I am going to sign. Holy crap. You can still get Darnell Mooney in over 50% of ESPN leagues. You should go check out if Darnell Mooney is available in your league because that's absolutely ridiculous. Okay. Last question here. So I'm assuming James Robinson versus Peyton Barber. Um, honestly, oh man. Um, I think you have to play Peyton Barber. I know that sounds crazy, but James Robinson is in real trouble in Jacksonville because Urban Meyer's probably not a good head coach, and he loves Carlos Hyde. And I was really worried when they picked up Carlos Hyde because I figured he did it because he loves Carlos Hyde. So like I'm actually like right now, I'm probably recommending to people like if Carlos Hyde's available and you really need a desperation, RB2, RB3 flex, etc. Like you could go get him. He'll be a floor play because the other thing is I don't think Denver's a good matchup for any of the Jacksonville guys. We saw them keep the New York Giants running back Saquon Barkley in check. Um, so I don't see why they can't keep Jacksonville's running backs in check either. Whereas Peyton Barber, again, he really could have an injury fill in RB2, RB1 type of day. We've seen it before. So I would play him for the upside. So for me, that is going to, and I can't believe in 2021 I am saying this, but Peyton Barber over James Robinson. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining. Next week, I will hopefully do this a little longer because as you can see, I didn't get through a ton of the preview yet. I'm going to definitely have to hop on after the show I'm going on, which is going to be the Ball Blast start sit show. In case anyone wants to come check that out, I will tweet about that later. But ideally, my goal is to do an Ask Me Anything while I go through this Sunday preview that I do, which gives you some players you can still pick up off of waivers in addition to some key player updates and get that sent out before kickoff. So I will still send this out later today. But for now, I'm going to have to sign off again. Thanks, everyone, so much for coming on. It has been a blast and looking forward to doing it next week. Peace.